Hey, podcast. Welcome back to the Probably True Crime podcast. I am again joined by Laura,
Hello.
Flavia,
Hi.
and Mille.
Hi.
This is part two of our True Crime Book Club series. And if you haven't listened to part one, we seriously recommend you to go back and do that, as you'll have a little bit of a better understanding of the topic of today. We'll be taking a closer look on these three stories and look at what makes a true crime story and ask, like, where is the line between truth and fiction? And with that, I will ask you, Laura, new journalism. What's up with that?
Yeah, so new journalism is a non-fiction genre form that kind of emerged in the 1960s and 70s in America. So right as Truman Capote is working on In Cold Blood, which he released in 1965,
Right.
Truman Capote is a very well-known and at this point as well established author who went to this scene of the crime and interviewed and spoke with the people involved, both people living in the town, but also the murderers. Um, and with that, he took these, journalistic uh, reports that he had done and mixed it with fiction, used dialogue and point of view and personal voice to create empathy in readers and to engage them to this true story. This, of course, has led to a fair number of criticism in the shape of it not being as accurate or as objective as traditional journalism is. Um, Capote, by interviewing these people, were closely involved with them and gained, a personal relationship to especially one of the two murderers, Perry Smith, which makes the reader have a clear, sympathetic view of Perry and less so of Dick Hickok.
All right. So he is sort of placing himself in the middle of the case. Flavia, how does that relate to Helter Skelter?
The peculiarity of Helter Skelter is that the author is also the prosecutor in the case. The style that he uses is closer to the traditional journalism that aims to be objective. So we could say that the level of fictionalization is lower, but that doesn't mean that there are no biases. The role of Bugliosi in the case is actually where the biases and therefore the level of fictionalization lie in the book.
Okay.
He says multiple times that one of the keys of his legal strategy is to present the motive behind the murders with a logical explanation, which is basically Helter Skelter theory. And we can clearly see this aspect in his narrative. And it somehow at the time was a necessity, as there was a lot of speculation at the time regarding these murders. But for nowadays readers, it is also somehow a limit because there is less room for their opinion in interpreting this case.
Right, right.
Right. And speaking of narratives, which have been highly criticized as well,
Okay.
I'm back with the Amityville Horror by J. Anson. And it's really a novel that sort of moves between fact or truth and fiction constantly through the story. So obviously it is supposed to be based on the testimony of the Lutz family, who claim that everything that happens in this novel is the truth. And there are things that we definitely know are true. The fact that when the Lutz family moved in and that was a horrible murder. But then there's also the paranormal activity where we very much lack the direct evidence. One thing that's quite interesting in the narrative is that they use real details from the court case to sort of support their narrative of the paranormal activity. So, for example, George Lutz wakes up at 3:15 every night, and that's the time where the murder happened. So they're trying to construct this narrative of truth by connecting the two things. Another aspect that sort of moves towards fiction is that Ronald Defoe's defense attorney, William Weber, claimed that it was a hoax, and that he and the Lutzes sort of agreed to construct this story to help his defense and for the Lutz family to earn some money. I think when you look at it, another central part of the narrative is that financial stress is such an important part of the story. And it sort of brings up the question if these people are haunted by paranormal activity or if they're just haunted by sort of economic instability. And the fear of having bought a house that they couldn't actually afford. So, in many ways, this house, which is the materialization of the American dream of this time, is actually haunting them.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. I liked how you talked about the American dream in relation to the sort of creation of fiction in the story. It's really interesting that you talked about the haunting by the American dream. I feel like that's also like a common theme in Cold Blood. Like, Laura, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, it's a theme in the book. We have the Clotter family, which is a family that's murdered, who Mr. Clotter is kind of a representation of the American dream in the sense that he made it. He managed to go from nothing to wealth, and now he has a house and a loving family, just like in Amityville Horror. Um, and according to the town, they're kind of a representation of all of their values. Of course, noting the fact that this is a white family, they're a Christian family, and they are well off. However, the fictional aspect, which Capote kind of brings in, is the fact that there is cracks in this American dream. It looks from the outside perfect, but then we have the mother who is mentally ill and the son who's antisocial, and the whole issue of the haunting of economics. They're murdered because they have money and someone wants to get that money. And then we have Perry Smith, who is this person of color who never stood a chance in the American dream. For him, it's not a dream, it's pure fiction.
Yeah, it wasn't made for colored people.
It wasn't made for colored people at all. So Capote kind of also highlights how the American dream is fiction through Perry, who never stood a chance.
In Helter Skelter as well, we can see a cracked or broken dream from both the victim and the murderer's sides. Certainly, the victim somehow incarnate the American dream due to their lifestyle, but by what we know about their lives through these brief biographies that Bugliosi gives us, we can see tension, failure, and struggle to achieve the American dream. Sharon Tate is not a successful actress yet by the time of her murder, and she somehow reaches fame after her death. And as I was saying, even the murderers have a broken dream, as they are people who detached from the traditional and conservative values from their families to join the Manson family, which has somehow some common points with the American dreams, the idea of family itself, the idea of freedom, of taking control over your life, which is a lie. It's fiction in that case as well, because the only person that has control on these people's lives is Charles Manson.
Right, yeah.
And so their attempt to achieve the dream escalates in murder, in violent crimes.
Okay, so that's some really good points. And, if you've been listening to this podcast a while, I'm not a big fan of the American dream at all. So it sort of does joy me a little bit to hear that even in these stories, the American dream is but that, a dream. And gosh, a real nightmarish reality. Yeah, okay, so great points, everyone. For now, we'll take a short break and we'll have a word from our sponsors and we'll see you in a little bit, continue the discussion.
There is a cut.